Welcome to Unlock You with Dr. Shannan Crawford. And it's not every day that you get to meet your doppelganger, your friend who is like an intellectual, like you get each other.
Yes.
You also get some ADHD symptoms also. And you feel like, oh my God, I've known you 10 days metaphorically. I have no idea. But like a lifelong sister. So
that's right.
Dr. Kelly Cagle, education degree. Tell us about your background and your training.
Sure will. Yes. So I have a PhD in, I'll say it because I can let you know, you'll get it. K through 16 educational leadership and policy studies. Really mouthful for education. And so my heart really is to partner with families to decide what it is that they want for their kids, that they can write their own script. That's ultimately where people ask me all the time, well, what made you go to school for such a long time? And I was like, I have no idea, other than I was being obedient. I didn't have a desired outcome. I had zero idea. I felt super inadequate. I did not feel like I belonged. I had a 5-month-old nursing baby, a 2-year-old, really hard-headed toddler, and a 7-year-old that was starting his school education career. And here I am going back to school, get my doctorate. So I had no desire, I had no goal, I had no end goal. It's all been an act of obedience to God and then taking one step after another since then. So I graduated in 2021 with a PhD, and then I've started my own thing. So,
I love it. And your own thing is helping me and others with our ADHD symptoms. So
absolutely.
If somebody is listening and they're like, hey, how do I know if I have ADHD? What are some of those symptoms that would highlight for them?
So I'll be super authentic here. And I have never been fully diagnosed, which is why I was asking you if you do that. Because I would love to know. I know from all of the research I conducted, it's like, man, I have so many of these symptoms internally that a lot of times even show externally, but internally for sure.
Yeah.
You know, and when people meet me in public, they don't see a lot of these things. They don't see the introversion. Nobody believes I'm an introvert, but internally, this is where you really have no idea what's going on inside somebody's heart, mind. You have no idea what's going on inside somebody's home behind closed doors. It's really just their own life. And so, so for ADHD in particular, when I was in college, so a little backstory, I moved here from Brazil when I was 11 years old. And I always thought that my struggles academically were because of a language barrier. I didn't speak any English whenever I moved here. Zero. I was in ESL, the most sheltered environment you can have a kid. That was cute little me back then. I would cry because I had no idea what was going on. I was afraid I couldn't tell anybody. I had nobody I could trust. Nobody understood me. So then when I got to in my PhD in particular, all of the struggles, I would remember driving home and I would call Josh and just crying, which obviously is postpartum too, but I'd be crying and I'm like, I just need some Adderall. I need something to help me get through this. Yeah. Because sitting in class, all of the information, reading textbooks, you went through this. You know that doctoral work is a different beast.
It's a beast.
You can go undergrad and grad is great. Grad is like a middle ground, but then you get to doctoral, not to underplay anything that anybody's ever accomplished. They're all great and have their own hards, but doctoral reading is intense and heavy and dense. And I felt super, if I can say it, dumb, inadequate. And I thought it was because of my language deficiency. I was like, it's because I didn't blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, oh no, it's not. It's because Kelly, you struggle focusing. So I've started to do a lot of this work of, well, how can I change that script? How can I turn this inability to focus for my good? How can I help myself focus?
Yeah.
How can I help myself get through this tough task that I may not enjoy it? How can I make this not even enjoyable, but doable to where I at least finish it? And so that I think is one of the biggest symptoms that I saw in particular in myself. But then in other areas where I see it in kids, I was a teacher before, and I saw it a lot in boys in particular. And boys and girls show it differently, especially as children. So boys are very active and hyperactive and have a hard time sitting still and blurting out things. The teacher, everybody raise your hand before you answer. The boys are like, it's B. Very common.
Yes.
Some of those, things that I saw as a teacher from the kids' perspective. But then girls, and this is where I think I would fit in that box, is you hide in the mask of perfectionism.
Right.
You're like, I'm going to be this good student.
Yep.
I'm going to be the teacher's pet. I was always sitting in the front.
Yep.
I had my colored pens, which I've already put them up, but I still have colored pens. So those are kind of the I believe, easy to spot symptoms.
Yeah. And in our field, obviously, as a psychologist, we just recorded a podcast. So if you aren't already subscribed and you're a mom who is struggling with ADHD, either yourself or your child, and you're wanting to navigate that, tell them the name of your podcast.
Sure. It's Parenting IQ Podcasts, and we are on Apple, Spotify, and a whole bunch of other things. We're on YouTube and lots of avenues, but mainly Spotify and Apple.
So we were just talking on yours that anxiety, depression, repressed trauma, and just brain ADHD all look the same in symptoms. So if you're struggling and you're going, man, I'm having a problem with focus, with concentration, with memory, with retention, if your inner world gets very hyper and excited about something and then you squirrel to the next thing and the next thing, within moderation, everything is a spectrum. We all are kind of normal. And then it hits a point where it's like negatively impacting our life. And so if you're listening to this, don't self-diagnose, go to a professional. But also maybe it's like going to start a conversation for you, because I definitely wasn't diagnosed ADHD as a kid, but now as an adult, I'm like, oh my gosh, my poor little perfectionist sit in the front, try to compensate for all these things that I could have had more support and scaffolding. And there's no shame. There's nothing wrong. It just means for me, I had trauma brain. And so trauma brain creates like a fog over the brain, and it's not wired properly because so much impacted at a young age. And the soul is now trying to compartmentalize and hide, almost like if you had a bunch of minimized browser windows, it's going to affect the data and the overall mainframe of your computer. And so then you have a hard time focusing. You have a hard time concentrating and being able to complete tasks. And the memory part is fascinating because if I'm not fully present doing one thing, then I'm not encoding it. If it's not encoded, then it can't be retrieved. So a lot of people then start to think they're dumb.
Right.
Or they're reading something and they can't focus and concentrate. That also might be too much chatter from the back of the brain where unconsciously I'm feeling anxious or insecure or depressed, or you might have a repressed trauma, something that's like trying to come up to conscious awareness, and you're just whack-a-moling it back down. So I love that you're sharing your story because it's so relatable. And what are some of the strategies you've come up with that you're like, hey, this is kind of low-hanging fruit. People could also do some of these things.
I would love to share those. As you were talking, I was actually thinking, man, I would love to share the strategy. And then here you are with this question. It's the Holy Spirit. So one of the biggest things for me is, again, going back to the focus aspect, whether I'm reading something or I'm trying to get a task done, but the focus aspect. I know that if I'm at church, for example, in order for me to focus and process, really take this, soak it in, this information, I have to have a piece of gum in my mouth. So I'm chewing and I'm releasing this energy that is bottling up inside of me because I'm already sitting, I'm not able to move. But if that chewing gum allows me to release that energy. And I also do that same strategy whenever I sense myself getting nervous about something. My anxiety starts boiling up if I'm about to, do a podcast episode or speak. A lot of times you'll see me 5 minutes before my gum, I'm just like, I'm pacing and I'm chewing, releasing all of that energy that's really trying to boil up inside of me. And box breath is another thing that helps me with my anxiety. But going back to focus.
Wait, let's do box breath so they know, because some people don't know.
Sure, absolutely.
So you're picturing a box in your mind. And so you're doing, some people do 8 counts, some do 6. I don't think it really matters. It's actually the rhythmic, because then you're resetting your brain waves. That's why rhythmic breathing is helpful. When you get anxious, you're overstimulating the back of the brain. And so the slow, shallow breaths are what cause you to feel lightheaded and dizzy. People are going to actually faint if you stay in that too long because you're not oxygenating your blood properly and you're leaving too much carbon dioxide in the lungs. And so that's where you're like, I can't think, I can't focus. Oh my gosh. And so the anxiety keeps mounting and mounting where people think, oh, I have test anxiety, I have flight anxiety, I have this type of anxiety. And it's like, oh, you've classically conditioned yourself. And now your body is pre-programmed, just like your cell phone with your, face unlocking your phone. There's a pre-program that automatically turns on. So box breathing is really helpful to be slow and rhythmic and intentional, to really force yourself to take 4 breaths in or 8 breaths in, and then 4 or 8 out, 4 in or out, in and then out. So the reason you're doing that also, it's making your brain focus on just your breath instead of what's wrong with me? How do I get out of this? And all the catastrophizing that hypes up the anxiety or distractibility. What's it been like for you to do box breathing?
Exactly what you said. Whenever I sense all of those thoughts coming, and I'm like, I'm gonna channel those thoughts right now to my breathing, and I'm actually focusing on something else. I'm replacing what I'm thinking about.
Perfect.
So I think that's part of the reason why, along those benefits, I think that's one of the big benefits too, is that you're now paying attention to something else. You know what I mean? Your thoughts are like, hey, I'm done thinking about all of these lies, the library of lies, worst case scenarios. And now I'm focusing on my actual breath. And then it's regulating my entire nervous system. So I love it. I do it very often. My kids do it and it's fantastic.
I love that.
And one more strategy I wanted to share before we go to the next thing is, and this is super liberating and I've passed it down to my kids and it's really fantastic. When you are having to focus on something really hard, for example, reading, okay, you want to make sure that you are taking in the information that you are consuming and you are sitting in a classroom or you're sitting at church and you can't. So actually, this is for the opposite times whenever you have freedom to move around. I like to walk and read. So
outdoors or on like a treadmill?
Any.
Okay.
Whether I'm riding my bike, I'm walking outside, I'm walking on the treadmill, it doesn't matter. But if I am moving my body, again, going back to that, I'm releasing the energy. I'm multitasking in my brain. I'm giving myself something else that then replaces this. So movement while reading. My kids, if they have something in their hands while they're reading, you would be so amazed at what they can accomplish. That's just one that I felt like if I knew this whenever I was getting my PhD, it would have been not different outcome because I turned out just fine, but my stress levels during the process would have been different.
Yeah. And then how we learn to relate with ourselves. So many things come from, do I feel equipped with strategies to go toward that situation instead of avoiding, and then we hit it. And now it's like, oh my gosh, now I have to perform. I have to read. I have a 12, book assignment all of a sudden, and it's due at 6 a.m. tomorrow. Because avoidance is such a big part of our anxiety management, which is not a good form. You want to confront it with a strategy and with a plan. And that's what I love, that you actually do coaching in this space. So tell people about how you do your coaching.
So I have a community for moms. It's called Mom IQ Community. And so in that community, we have like-minded moms that have access to all of these resources that I've been creating and different trainings that I've recorded over the years, and really just compiling a whole bunch of information that will help them with getting help from like chores around the house with your kids. And again, this is in particular a space for moms, where moms are coming in and raising their mom IQ. They're raising their ability to create this peaceful home rhythm in the midst of this ADHD chaos. Everything that we're talking about here, that your mind is constantly going, whether it's the mom herself who has it, or the husband who has it, or the kids who have it, it really, really takes deep, intentional work to create this rhythm. Otherwise, your rhythm is going to be off. And then you're going to be losing precious times with your kids that are meant to be impactful, and you're distracted. You live a distracted life, that then the noise comes in, and then the kids' confusion and anxiety and self-doubt and all the negative can creep in because you haven't built that shelter around what you allow into your home, and anything is creeping in, and some of it's good, some of it's bad, a lot of it's distracting. And so that's what we do inside of Mom IQ Community. I also have an ADHD resource I called it the ADHD Family Blueprint. And it's giving 12 strategies that they can apply on a daily basis in their home. Really, really practical. I'm a super practical person because I'm like, man, you can teach me all the things, but I need to be able to do them.
Yeah.
And so that's what that resource is. And then for the ones who are actually like, listen, it's amazing, but I really need somebody to hold my hand. I learn better this way. Then I offer coaching. And I do one-on-one coaching. And I have different options. I have a big program that we work together for 100 days. And that is really deep work, a lot of tears, a lot of just like, again, internal. And then I offer a 4-week or just 1 week, one session. So it just depends.
Well, I love that because, being a clinical psychologist, I think it's hard on a social media pop world that people want, hey, what's the fix for? And it's like, most things in life are not a microwave. Like there's a tip,
Absolutely.
there's a tool, there's something that's probably helpful, but to actually deep dive, people are worth that investment.
Dr. Shannan, with that in mind, the thing though is the work that you and I are doing is actually slowing people down to do the work so then they can unlock themselves into this explosive future.
Exactly.
Whether it's in motherhood, whether it's in their personal life, professional, with family members, doesn't matter.
Exactly.
But what happens is exactly what I just said a few minutes ago. People don't invest in themselves. They're like, oh, I'm fine. I can just suffocate this a little longer. I'm just going to keep going a little bit more.
Yeah.
And that's what we see time and time again, unfortunately. And so with the social media, it's again, distractions.
Yes.
And people are giving in to a life of distractions that they're not slowing down enough to think, wow, my oldest son is about to turn 14.
Wow.
I'm down to 4 years with him. And his goal is to move overseas and play soccer. So like literally where I'm even living in the same country as my son, 4 years. Well, that's nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm going to do every single day, every day? Use it. Use it every minute to connect with him.
It's so good. It's so good. And so if we keep it about ADHD, the prioritization of knowing I get to choose what my priority is.
That's right.
And so a lot of people focus just at the software level. If you're a supercomputer, the software is like, have a good mindset, do this practical thing, instead of where did I start to believe that I don't get to choose things? A lot of times people who have ADHD symptoms, not the only reason, but one of them that I have seen a lot in clients is they actually don't believe at that autonomy versus shame doubt phase at 2 years old that I get to make choices, that I'm a good decision maker and I get to prioritize things. There's a lot with our free will that got suppressed when we were very young because our greatest longing is attachment and belonging, right? And so if that's my motivation in life, then task and homework and assignments and going eventually after my life purpose, that all comes secondary to my need to belong and to be important. So the work that we're doing of saying, okay, internal board meeting, if you know my channel, of what part of me doesn't know I have permission to pause. All of these things are important that I'm doing. But right now I'm going to hear from the me that actually holds the key. So your soul will hyper perform and it will compensate. It creates the false self. And so a lot of people who struggle with ADHD might actually be operating from your soul. And that's why you keep doing the tyranny of the urgent. You do every single thing as if they're equally important instead of the internal permission. And I want to speak it over you right now. You have permission to have authority in your own life, to have authority over your own thoughts. Every single thought you have, you do get to put in a hierarchy of saying, okay, that's important. And I'm going to write it down. I may do it with colored pens.
Right.
I may do it my unique way. But then now I decide what is most important. And what I found really helpful is identifying first that you even have a soul and a spirit. And then you're in a body. And the body is responding to a million different signals at the exact same time. The soul is based on this timeline, this realm, this dimension, and it's trying to get the checklist of the urgent thing that's next. Your spirit man is seated with Christ in heavenly places. You have authority. And so it's your responsibility to take authority. I know it's abstract, but if you can even in your imagination just say, hey, authority portion of my spirit, come forward. Some people call it the ruler portion, which is just a fun made up name. So ruler portion of my spirit, come forward. Lord, what are you calling me to do? What are you assigning me to focus on today? And then you write it down in prioritization. Now, the crazy thing is people will hear that and go, well, I don't hear God. Well, nothing happens. Nothing comes to mind. You get to decide because you co-rule and reign. You get to decide. You get to be the authority of your life, not in like a controlling Hulk way, but in an internal, you are powerful, you are strong, you make good decisions. And it was a fascinating thing for me this last year. I'll write over myself just things I feel like the Lord is saying. So when I feel like it's God, I write in capital letters. And when I think it's me, it's cursive. And then when I think it's my spirit speaking, then I write in a different way. So that way I can look back and see kind of conversations I've had. And for about a full year, I kept writing, I make good decisions. I'm a good decision maker, like iterations of that as if I was like a child being punished in the corner. But I could tell the Lord was rewiring not just my software, but my hard drive, the internal part of me that must have believed I don't make good decisions. My ADHD symptoms, that was one of the best things that resolved it because I now chose on the inside to believe I can make good decisions. I am smart. I am capable. I am trustworthy. And we just had our big grand launch for Crawford Clinics for our new location. And we did the whole renovation and an open house in 30 days. I mean, massive.
I know when
renovation.
I walked in and I saw it finished, I'm like, this doesn't make sense.
30 days. And the reason is because we had a million decisions back to back while I'm still being a psychotherapist, still leading the team, still doing executive coaching, still running the business and making all those decisions. Both my contractor and my designer, which might be a mutual friend of ours, both separately said, Dr. Shannan, you make really good decisions. Like you're very decisive. You're very clear. You guys, my whole life, I've never made good decisions. Like I'll waffle. I'll be like, what do you guys think? I would overly defer. I would be so insecure to make the wrong decision, analysis paralysis, overthink it, overanalyze it. And so that year of preparation. So when she says 100 days of coaching, I'm like, jump on that. Yeah. If she has a proven strategy that's going to help you, you are worth that investment.
Absolutely.
And the problem is people rely on motivation and instant emotional response. So they're like, oh, okay, I want to do your course. And then they never finish it.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to jump on this thing because they're relying on emotion, which is a part of your soul, your mind, will, and emotion, instead of your spirit man coming forward and deciding, I am worth this investment. My relationship is worth this investment. The calling of God on my life is worth this investment. So I applaud you for the structure you have, and the e-courses I think are even coming out on September 15th.
Well, we've got some things coming for sure. Those will even be out before September.
Okay.
Yeah, we got some big things coming at the IQ Network for sure. We've been getting download after download from the Lord. And so right now, as I said, I started with saying that my PhD was a step of obedience after another step of obedience. And that is what the IQ Network has also been. It's been, okay, Holy Spirit, what do you have for us today? What do you have for these families today? And then we obey and we do it. And so it's been a really cool journey seeing God move. And so there are some really cool things. So thank you.
So for people who are listening, who feel like your disability, your struggle, your limitation, whether it's ADHD, dyslexia, something else, or English as a second language, whatever country you're in, we want you first to know you're normal. Welcome to the table. We're all in this together. We all have some area of weakness that you can allow that to disqualify you, or you leverage it. And so in the very area where she was feeling dumb, the Lord is calling her to have empathy, to know exactly what it's like to scoop people up and bring them with her in that educational journey and structure and running their home. And then on my side, I also grew up like the nice one. Like people were like, oh, Shannan's like really sweet. But nobody had expected this girl to become a clinical psychologist and an executive CEO, right? Those things were not on the radar. So whatever your weakness is, allow that to be a leverage point because it makes you human. It makes you relatable and lovely and kind and warm to other people if you allow it to be healed and sanctified and not just overcompensate. And then third, tell us a few more strategies people might use who are struggling with some ADHD and having that structure in their lives.
Well, I want to bring an example real quick that I think very often whenever you are sharing about how sometimes we get to these places in our minds that end up limiting us, really. Well, you were talking about the belonging, the desire to belong and autonomy and things like that. But what came to mind is that if you think about childhood, a child is born super brave, like super risk-taking, super exploratory. I mean, like there are all these things. So good curiosity, so many good characteristics to kids. But then the older they get in school, the harder the content becomes. And then the more disconnected they become from learning. And then they turn into little robots. This is what I like to pull. I put it always like this. They become little robots because they're programmed what to learn, where to sit, who to work with, who to learn from. All right, tell me what to read now. Now I have to take this test. And they become programmed little humans. And I think that a lot of times what happens as we grow up, we never disconnect that person that was used to being told what to do all the time. Then we grow up and we are not used to not having people tell us what to do, which is why so many university students, freshmen in particular, there's tons of research out there talking about the struggle, the freshman 15 coming home, the anxiety, the mental health situation of university freshman students is because of this. Because now they are no longer, their hands are no longer being held. They're no longer being programmed what to learn, whether you have ADHD or not, right? This is generally speaking, anybody that's experiencing anything. This is what's happened, at least in the United States of America. And then we have to free ourselves from that and actually pursue what it is that we want to pursue. And then you hear a lot of the people in the university level that are like, you know what, this is not for me. I'm going to drop out. I'm going to go and create something big. And because that curiosity, that freedom, they step into that. You know, they step into, you know what? I no longer have to wear this badge of like, I got my K through 12 education. Now I have my high school education. Now let me go and do my own thing. And so in particular to ADHD, same thing. It's about figuring out the things that have held you captive. The lies, whether they are lies or they're disabilities, inabilities, limitations that you've experienced. Maybe you had testing anxiety, which I did, and, you know, it was really traumatizing to sit in the room, took my GRE twice to try to get it, never got a good enough grade. It was literally by the grace of God that I got into the program I did. And because when he wants you somewhere, he's going to make it happen, no matter what you did or didn't do. And so just navigating that freedom walk of how you were perfectly designed by a perfect creator, period.
Boom.
Nothing else to add to that. So however you were designed, as long as you remain faithful to do that internal work. Right? Of not just navigating life and allowing, because again, kids have no bills to pay, no worries, no nothing. They're fed, dinner's ready. As you grow up, now you have responsibility. So as a responsible adult, part of that responsibility is to do this inner work. If you want to be whole and if you want to operate in fullness of life. And so again, overall, whether you have any kind of label, it doesn't matter. Let go of the label becoming a part of your negative identity. Let go of that and see it as a superpower. And I'm going to walk in this freedom and I'm devoted to do the work.
So good. And so encouraging and inspiring, because the negative labels, the negative self-talk, it limits us more than the actual learning difference.
Right.
I won't say disability, because in our prior podcast, we were talking about how it's actually a superpower when channeled appropriately. And most people that have done incredible things have a background of ADHD and or dyslexia. So wherever we have limited ourselves, the self-limitation, not the original thing you thought was the problem, becomes the issue. And if we can do internal board meetings where you say, me that struggles to focus, me that procrastinates, me that has a hard time believing that I'm competent or capable or qualified, everybody else is doing it. Who am I to step into that space? Whatever it is, you can be kind and curious to that part of you. Imagine that it's like a little vulnerable kid on the inside and you're hugging that part of you. And as a speaker, I'll do this a lot where, you know, right before I'm about to go on stage, I'll try to find somewhere separate and not overly stimulating. Take super deep breaths with intentionality that I'm being kind toward me that's anxious. What am I anxious about this? What are they evaluating? What are they thinking about me? Do I know my material? Am I smart? Am I competent? Whatever that unconscious latent fear that all humans have, I've just tapped into it enough that I'm actually able to go, oh, that's what that anxiety, which really just feels like you're about to have a heart attack. And you're like, why do I feel so frazzled? And if with your intention, which just means focus, you can focus on saying, I acknowledge and release. And with your breath, you're releasing the trapped energy of emotion, not in a new age way, but just the emotion that gets stored in the body. Because if you think about it, your heart's racing as if you're running away from a serial killer and you're supposed to read a book. You're supposed to take a test. You're supposed to speak on stage or, showcase your new business model. If you're feeling like that, you can't actually engage the front of your brain, which is your prefrontal smart brain. So the way that you reset that, anything you can do to put pressure on your little bitty organs, that sends something to the vagus nerve. I know it's a funny name, but the vagus nerve turns off amygdala, which I call Amy, our teenage girl that needs to just chill. And you're doing deep breaths. And the cool thing is a hug, whether real or imagined, has the same physiological experience of pushing on the body to say you're in attachment. Our greatest need from infancy until 99 years old will be, am I secure? Am I held? Do I belong? Am I wanted? Am I known? So I'll visualize hugging that part of me and then deep breaths going, anxiety. Like I'm literally using my actual breath because a lot of people think about it or they talk about it, but they don't actually get the trapped energy. All that racing heart that is putting dopamine, it's putting energy, it's putting adrenaline, endorphins throughout your body ready to run. And so you need to actually release that trapped energy, reset, and then you get your brain back. Like we said with the box breathing, you get your brain going back into slow, rhythmic, steady. And that's what's activating the front of your brain. So how can people find you and connect more with IQ Mom?
Mom IQ. Well, it's the IQ network. So there's the Parenting IQ podcast and then Mom IQ. So it's all under the IQ umbrella. So I am everywhere, literally everywhere at Dr. Kelly Cagle. I'm mostly active on Instagram. My website is Dr. Kelly Cagle. And again, there are tons of resources, a bunch of free stuff that you can just plug in right away into your day-to-day. And the Mom IQ community is also there. Everything is linked there. Parenting IQ podcast. But if you type in Dr. Kelly Cagle anywhere, according to my kids, I will be blasted everywhere. So they say.
Awesome. So good. Well, guys, we believe in you. And if you need anything, CrawfordClinics.com. We're here for you for therapy, coaching, and we also have enrichment, which has been really fun to add the e-courses and the live events in South Lake, Texas. Bye, guys.
Bye.